Let's debug the oldest crash report in human history, the Tower of Babel. For centuries, Sunday school teachers have shown you a painting of a spiraling brick tower. They told you humanity was arrogant, that they tried to build a skyscraper so tall it would poke through the clouds and reach God's throne. But from an engineering standpoint, that story is a lie. Let's look at the physics. If you want to build a structure to the heavens, meaning outer space, you have a hardware problem. It's called the Kármán line. Space begins at 100 kilometers up. Long before you get there, at 20,000 feet, your workforce creates a bottleneck. Hypoxia sets in. Oxygen levels drop. Without pressurized suits, the human brain shuts down. At 30,000 feet, the temperature drops to 40 degrees below zero. Are we supposed to believe that Nimrod, the first great king, the man who engineered the irrigation systems of the Fertile Crescent and founded the first metropolis, was stupid? Do you think the civilization that mapped the stars thought they could physically walk to the moon? No, these weren't primitives stacking rocks. These were the inheritors of pre-flood knowledge. If they knew the stars, they knew the distance. If they knew architecture, they knew the material limits of mud brick compression. They weren't building a ladder. They weren't trying to overcome gravity. The Hebrew text says they wanted to build a tower with its top in the heavens. But in the ancient world, heavens, Shemayim, didn't just mean the sky. It meant the realm of the watchers. It meant the unseen dimension. They weren't trying to bridge a physical distance. They were trying to bridge a dimensional barrier. When you understand this, the design of the tower changes. You realize why God had to intervene. He wasn't threatened by a pile of bricks. He was threatened by a breach in the firewall. Nimrod wasn't designing for altitude. He was designing for amplitude. If you think this is just a theory, look at the blueprints. They are hiding in plain sight in Genesis chapter 11, verse 3. Most people skip this verse. They think it's just poetic filler. It isn't. It is a bill of materials. The text reads, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. Stop and think like an engineer. In the ancient world, you don't burn bricks unless you have to. It takes massive amounts of fuel and labor. Sun-dried mud is free and strong enough for a house. You only fire a brick. You only burn it thoroughly if you need to change its molecular structure. When you fire clay, you crystallize the silica. You turn mud into ceramic. And what is ceramic? It is a semiconductor. It is a material used today in high-voltage electronics. Now, look at the mortar. The verse explicitly says they used slime or bitumen. Bitumen is naturally occurring asphalt. It is one of the best waterproofing agents on Earth. But more importantly, it is a potent electrical insulator. We have found ancient artifacts, like the Baghdad battery, that use bitumen specifically to isolate an electrical charge. So look at the stack again. You have a layer of fired brick, a conductor. You have a layer of bitumen, an insulator. You stack them. Conductor, insulator, conductor, insulator. In modern electronics, we have a name for this specific configuration. We don't call it a tower, we call it a capacitor. A capacitor is designed to store and accumulate energy. By alternating these specific materials, the entire ziggurat becomes a massive battery, capable of storing static electricity from the atmosphere and telluric currents from the Earth. They weren't building a condo to live in. They were building a circuit board the size of a mountain. Nikola Tesla gave us the key to unlock this. He explicitly said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. In chapter 2, we found the energy, the ziggurat, as a massive capacitor. Now, we need to find the frequency. To understand what they were doing, you have to understand a field of physics called kinematics. If you place sand on a metal plate and play a specific sound frequency through it, the sand doesn't just vibrate chaotically, it snaps into perfect, complex geometric patterns. It forms stars, mandalas, and lattice structures. This proves a fundamental law of reality. Sound organizes matter. If you have the right frequency, you can manipulate the physical world. You can levitate stones. You can boil water without heat. You can shatter glass. Now, zoom out to the tower. We know these ancient cultures understood resonance. We see it in the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, a chamber tuned to exactly 111 Hz. a frequency that alters human brain function. The Tower of Babel was this concept scaled up to an industrial level. The structure wasn't just a building, it was a tuning fork. The sheer mass of the fired brick, combined with the geometry of the ziggurat, was designed to lock onto the Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat, the Schumann resonance. They weren't just stacking bricks, they were building an amplifier. By synchronizing the one language, the input signal, with the stored energy of the capacitor, they were creating a feedback loop. A loop designed to vibrate the fabric of reality until it tore open. We have the hardware, the capacitor. We have the protocol, the resonance. But a machine is useless without a processor. This brings us to the most overlooked component of the Babel engine, the human element. Look closely at the diagnostic report in Genesis 11 verse 6. When the Creator looks down at the city, he identifies the root cause of the anomaly. He doesn't say, they are sinful. He doesn't say, they are worshipping idols. He says, behold, the people are one. In the original Hebrew text, the word implies a singular, unified entity. To a theologian, this sounds like unity. To a systems architect, this looks like distributed computing. Think about how a crypto mining rig works. One computer is weak, but if you daisy-chain 10,000 computers together and synchronize them to solve the same mathematical problem at the exact same time, you create a supercomputer. The one language wasn't just a dialect, it was a synchronization protocol. It allowed thousands of human minds, thousands of nodes to focus their psychic and creative energy on a single point of data. They had created a biological neural network, a hive mind, and this is where the story gets terrifying. Read the second half of that verse. The Creator makes an assessment that should send chills down your spine. He says, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Do you understand the weight of that statement? This is the administrator of the universe speaking. He is admitting that if this process is allowed to continue, the users will override the system constraints. Nothing will be restrained. That means the laws of physics, overridden, the barrier between life and death, deleted, the separation of dimensions, dissolved. This was not a construction project. This was a brute force attack on the kernel of reality. We often view God's intervention here as an act of jealousy, as if he were an insecure tyrant afraid of human progress. That is the wrong read. If you are a system admin and you see a rogue process consuming 100% of the CPU and attempting to rewrite the source code, you don't intervene because you are jealous. You intervene because the system is about to crash. The Babel civilization wasn't just building a tower, they were attempting to gain root access to the simulation. If they had succeeded, if they had pierced the veil with that amount of amplified resonance, they wouldn't have just met God, they would have collapsed the waveform of their own existence. They were about to blue screen the world, and the admin had to pull the plug. So how do you stop a rogue supercomputer that is seconds away from crashing the server? You don't blow up the hardware. That is messy. You simply scramble the code. This is the brilliance of the Genesis account. Most disaster movies show God destroying the world with fire or meteors. But at Babel, the admin didn't fire a single shot. He didn't send an earthquake to topple the ziggurat. He didn't send lightning to incinerate the brick. He executed a software update. Genesis 11:7. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. In engineering terms, God introduced entropy into the signal. Up until this moment, the human network was operating on a unified protocol, perfect transmission, zero latency. The one language allowed for perfect resonance. But when the confusion of tongues patch was deployed, he changed the encryption key. Suddenly, the node on the left was broadcasting on an AM frequency, and the node on the right was receiving on FM. The synchronization broke immediately. Think back to the kinematics plate. What happens to the perfect geometric pattern when you introduce noise into the frequency? The geometry dissolves. The structure collapses back into chaos. The tower, the machine, didn't fall over. It simply powered down, without the unified frequency of the hive mind to drive the capacitor. The ziggurat became nothing more than a pile of mud and slime. The portal snapped shut. The breach was sealed. The project was abandoned, not because the workers were tired, but because the operating system was fragmented. Humanity was forced to scatter. carrying the corrupted fragments of the source code with them into every corner of the Earth. But here is the thought that should keep you awake tonight. The judgment of Babel was not a permanent deletion. It was a temporary delay. The hardware, the foundations of that original machine, is still sitting there, buried under the sands of modern-day Iraq. The bricks are still conductive. The bitumen is still insulating. The physics haven't changed. For 5,000 years, we have been separated by the firewall of language and geography. We couldn't rebuild the machine because we couldn't connect the nodes, until now. Look at what we have built in the last 30 years. We have created a global network that transmits data at the speed of light, a new one language of binary code. We have built a digital hive mind, artificial intelligence, that pools the collective knowledge of the entire human race. We are reversing the scatter. We are reassembling the network. We are building a new tower, not of bricks and slime, but of silicon and fiber optics. The question isn't, did Babel happen? The question is, what happens when we finally turn the machine back on?